Afternoon, everyone. And that lovely smell is asphaltenes, which is made up as part of it, and that's what gives off that very distinctive smell, and that's what we have plenty of, asphaltenes. So I have three quite unique projects today that I'd like to talk about to you. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, hopefully I've got that for you. Usual disclaimer. I'll start off with a corporate summary. So we have 440 million shares on issue, market cap of 333.46 million. Share price is about 7.6 cents, and our top 20 shareholders make up about 44% of the business shareholders. And we have, as of December, we had 3.2 million in the bank, and we have liquid asset investments of 1.97 million as well. The board is made up of Neil Biddle, who probably a lot of you know is one of the founding directors of Pilbara Minerals. And myself, I have over 25 years in the energy industry. I'm not a geologist, so probably a bit different today. And then we have Elias Carew as well, who has a very extensive background in equity markets. And then Vince and Kurt, joint COSEC and CFO. So, three projects I want to talk to you about. The Alpha Torbanite project, which has its high-grade bitumen, will give us the opportunity to be Australia's only end-to-end producer of bitumen. And then we have our high-grade helium, hydrogen, and hydrocarbons project in the Amadeus Basin in the Northern Territory. And then we have our geothermal, which is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, baseload renewable power. So, starting off with the Alpha Torbanite project, the project is located around 50 kilometres outside the township of Alpha, which is about a 2-hour drive from Emerald. We have Torbanite and Canalite. Both of those are oil shales. Now, when you process them, they turn into a heavy crude oil, and that heavy crude oil is what produces the bitumen. There's only two known fine deposits of torbanite in Australia, and we've got probably the only commercial one. The other one is in Tasmania, but it's not big enough to be commercial. What we're aiming to be is the only end-to-end producer of bitumen in Australia. So I'll talk about it a bit more later, but at the moment, Australia imports nearly all of its bitumen. The only bitumen that's produced in Australia is actually still the parts that make that up are still imported. We are looking to be carbon neutral by offsetting using our geothermal projects. The geothermal projects are a standalone project though, but they will be used to generate carbon credits, which we'll be able to use to offset. This will really give Australia to bring back manufacturing into the country. It's something that Australia doesn't do much of now, so having an opportunity to bring manufacturing back, and especially such a critical item like this, being bitumen, I think it will benefit the whole country. Now, what we can see, and unfortunately I've only got the 21, 22 prices, I haven't been able to get 22, 23 yet, but what we can see is across Australia, road-related expenditure has gone up year on year, and we can see there that's about $35 billion a year, and I'm sure it's even more this year on infrastructure spending. And we know there's a regional roads going on in central Queensland at the moment to upgrade all the roads there, and then there's a little small event going on in Brisbane in a few years' time called the Olympics. So we can imagine there's going to be a lot more infrastructure spending. So, as mentioned, Australia imports around just shy of nearly 1 million tonnes of bitumen a year. Most of that comes from Asia. Some of it comes from the Middle East, but the vast majority of it comes from Asia. Around 20% of that coming from China. And it doesn't come direct to here. So I was talking to one of the bitumen importers the other day, and they were telling me how they may purchase it, for example, in China. Then it'll go to Singapore, it'll get processed to come Australian standard, and then it gets shipped from Singapore to Australia. Now they come in big, heavy oil tankers. It has to be heated at around 240 degrees to get here. So it's an expensive way of getting bitumen into the country, and it's not the most environmentally friendly as well. So Each state released their bitumen binding prices each month. And this is the Queensland one, because this is where the project is. So, for example, there's different grades of bitumen, and this is just one. So C170 is probably the most commonly used bitumen in Australia. And the index pricing around that is around $1,500 a tonne. So it's not cheap. So with the Alpha Turbonite project, with oil shales, the most conventional way to treat it or process it is pyrolysis. Now, pyrolysis is heavy emissions. So we wanted to look at something a little bit different. And so we looked at liquefaction. Liquefaction has been used in the coal industry before, and we thought this would be a perfect fit for bitumen. Now, we've now completed 4 test programs, and we're very close now to getting our maiden PFS out the door. We've recently announced that we're going to do the project in a bit of a staged process. So stage 1 is we're going to mine about 500,000 tonnes a year, and then that will give us around 100,000 tonnes of bitumen a year. Now that's based off a 30% yield. I'm confident going forward we'll be able to beat that and produce more, but at this stage it's around 30%, so we're getting 100,000 tonnes a year. Now, stage 2 will increase the mining to 1 million tonnes a year, and that again will give us over 200,000 tonnes of bitumen a year. So by that stage, we're taking up about 20% of the market, hopefully more. Mine life of approximately about 20 years. And from an operation and environmental point of view, we've tried to maximise as much uses of the plant as possible. So during the liquefaction process, we actually produce some gases and some lighter crude oil as well. So that will be used to power the plant. So we won't have to have a grid connection, which is good given its quite remote location. So being able to power the plant using the oils and some of the gases we produce is great. It's less waste, and it makes good use of the products. Our first maiden inferred mineral resource estimate was about 18.6 million tonnes. Last year we went out and drilled a second drilling campaign and increased that from 51%. So we now have 28 million tonnes of combined canalite and turbonite. We've now completed supercritical water testing. So part of liquefaction, the conventional way is to use oil carrier. We wanted to see if we could use supercritical water. We engaged with Licella, who are one of the leading liquefaction companies in Australia. We completed that work, and we've passed that information on now to Monash University, as Monash are conducting the Test 4 program for us. As well as, because we increased the mineral resource estimate, we did have to go out and do some additional test work as well. And that's one of the reasons that we didn't complete the PFS in Q1 as we wanted to. But to enable it to be included as part of the PFS, we wanted to make sure that we did adequate testing so we could include that. So liquefaction testing with Monash University, we've done 18 samples run with them, that's all completed. So the only final stage thing for Monash to do now is produce the bulk sample that we need to send over to Technique. The Technique are New Zealand's leading bitumen company. Because we don't really have bitumen producing companies here in Australia, we've had to go to New Zealand. What they'll do is they will identify and certify the bitumen products we've got, and that will enable us to then go on. And we've already started discussions with end users about offtake agreements. So they're in progress at the moment. So hopefully we'll be able to give more news on that as it develops. And the yields from the test program now have been passed on to SRK. So they'll be able to work on the mineral resource estimate, changing it from indicated to measured. And as mentioned, we're on target now to have the preliminary feasibility study completed by Q2 this year. Now, the West Walker project. So Greenvale have entered into a farming agreement with Mosman Oil and Gas to acquire 75% of the interest of EP145, which is located in the Amadeus Basin. The Amadeus Basin has high concentrations of helium, some of the highest globally, and as well as confirmed hydrogen accumulations as well. If you look on the map there, you can probably see that Mount Kitty, when that was drilled, it had 9% helium and around 11% hydrogen. McGee, when that was drilled, that found large quantities of helium, around 6%. They didn't test for hydrogen at the time, but we're confident there will be hydrogen there as well. So EP145 sits on trend with the Mereenie oil and gas field. So Central, and who are based out there at the moment, have an operation in field out there, as well as Santos. So there's a lot of existing infrastructure already in place. So it would give us early access to the market once we do get into production. And Mosman, when they came out, they did a best estimate. So they have 440 million BCF, billion cubic feet, and 26.4 BCF of helium, and a best estimate of 26.4 BCF of hydrogen as well. So when people speak helium, I bet everyone thinks of helium balloons, but that's not what we're using it for, which is a shame because I do like them. We're looking at, MRI machines, semiconductors, the aerospace. The helium industry is showing significant growth year on year, semiconductors are doubling the demand. So what we're seeing is a higher demand for helium, but what we're seeing as well is a slowdown on supply. America, who are one of the biggest producers of helium, a number of their plants have shut down, and then because of the Ukraine-Russian war, a number of plants have also closed as well. So helium production around the world is slowing down. Helium cannot be manufactured like you can hydrogen, so it's a natural resource that you have to find. So it can't be manufactured. And just to put it into perspective with some of those percentages as well, America, who are one of the biggest producers of helium, anything around above 0.5 is commercially viable. So when you see numbers of 8-9% of helium, that's huge, and that's why it makes the Amadeus Basin stand out as such a good prospect. With hydrogen, the hydrogen industry, I think, is very much in the early development stages. I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see a huge increase in hydrogen. Hydrogen is an alternative fuel. I think hydrogen buses are going to become more and more common. Country the size of Australia, I know if I was driving across it in a big heavy goods vehicle, I'd rather be in a hydrogen vehicle than an EV one. So as we move to a more environmentally sensitive world, I think hydrogen is going to play a bigger part of it as an alternative fuel. Natural gas is the same. It's going to be around for a while yet. It's still going to be one of our main suppliers. So again, the gas industry is still a very good one to be in as well. So we'll find hydrogen, gas, and helium. So what we're seeing here is helium pricing going up year on year. So at the moment, you're getting around $450 US dollars for long-term contract pricing per 1,000 cubic feet. Now, if you want to get spot price is about $950 US dollars. So you can see it's a very high value product, again, which is going up year on year. And what we're seeing as well is the demand going up. So at the moment, I think it's around worth about $6 billion at the moment. And the market's expected to go up by 2030 to around $8 billion. So we're seeing a big growth in this market, and we're very keen to be a part of that growth. What we're doing next is 2D seismic. So the approval pathway is well under the way to start that. Hopefully we'll start on that in the coming months and have that data back by August. And then we're all going to put in our drilling approvals, and then by next year, we'll be drilling, and we've already identified a sweet spot, which will hopefully identify all three plays. So last but not least, geothermal. Geothermal, we have probably the best prospective site in Australia, the Millennium Basin. We have 3 applications in there, Julia Creek, Lara Downs, and Uchi. Julia Creek, the copper string high voltage transmission, $6 billion project by the government, runs straight through us. So with our geothermal opportunity, we'll have the opportunity to produce 24 hours 7 days a week, baseload power to connect onto that copper string transmission line. It's an ideal location, highly prospective. As the state government have announced that the budget, they've committed $19 billion for renewable energy projects for that Queensland supergrid. So we're in an ideal position to lock into that. So final key investments. So we've got 3 unique projects. Bitchman, Australia's only end-to-end producer. We'll have a monopoly in the market. It'll be fantastic for us. The helium, hydrogen markets are fantastic markets to be in. We're going to be in them. And then again, the renewable industry, 24/7 baseload power, geothermal. So 3 great projects. So if you want to know more, please come and see me at my booth. Thank you.